It don't matter what your name is, share your story. We'll be waiting, God. Yeah, for the haters, whoa.
You ready? Ready? What's up, everybody, and welcome back to For The Hayters podcast. For those of you new here, my name is Becky, and I will be your host. You also have Laura, who is our co-host and writer.
Welcome.
And then we have our special guest, Shauna.
Hey.
Or Dre. Whatever.
You can call me whatever.
Dr. Dre.
Well, yeah. Maybe not anything.
Awesome. So I'm pumped to have you here. So I was looking up facts today.
Okay.
I decided to do a little bit of research, and I found out that I am completely clueless about the, well, I don't know why I wouldn't be, but about the process.
Mm-hmm.
So, well, everyone's probably, well,
This is a really good tease. No. Yeah. I like this. Yeah.
and I was just like mind blown, right? Like there's like laws and stuff. I'm just like, holy crap. Like this, like I was like, this can't be real. Like how, and it is real.
I can attest to this. She was sending me things.
Yeah, I was sending her like screenshots from articles, and I was like, I didn't know this, I didn't know that. But before we get into that, why don't you tell us just a little bit about yourself, just to give people an idea of who you are, you know, where you came from, and just a nice quick summary.
Okay. Well, I'm an esthetician, makeup artist, bridal expert. No. I do a lot of weddings, and I've done film and things like that. But that's just my occupation. I try to make the world as beautiful as possible as any way I can, I guess. I like to consider myself like a little bit of a humanitarian and stuff, but I need more funds
fit in right
for
here.
that. I'm a mom of two, a wife of one.
It's not Utah. You don't have to clarify that here.
Yeah, you never know.
You and your husband have been together for a while.
Forever. No, a very long time. This July we'll celebrate 14 years of marriage.
Congrats. Of marriage?
Marriage. Yeah.
How long have you been dating? Or, together in its entirety?
I mean, I met him when I was like 17.
Yeah.
We weren't like dating until like really seriously, like maybe like 18, 19. But he proposed to me shortly after we were dating, like seriously. So like I've known him my whole adult life.
Right.
Which is gross. Because like this last birthday, I was like, oh my God, I officially know you longer than I haven't known you.
Right. That's sweet though.
No, I'm kidding. He knows I tease him all the time, and he'll probably kill me talking about years because he's like feeling it, because he's older than me. But yeah, we live in Bethlehem, and we've had this, cute little life.
Yeah. Your daughters are precious.
Thank you. I think so. Most of the time. But yeah, my oldest is an aspiring chef.
Like incredible,
nice.
like it's crazy. Yeah.
She has a little YouTube channel. Shout out to Samar's Kitchen.
Yeah.
Okay. Very nice.
What is it again?
Samar's Kitchen.
Samar's Kitchen.
Yeah, on YouTube. She also has the same handle on Instagram.
Give her a follow, guys.
Yeah,
Sure.
she's doing
She's
stuff.
13.
Yeah, she's been doing, like stuff that, like my friends that are chefs, like executive chefs, have been doing, for a couple of years. She's been doing that, like, like fruit caviar and things like that. Yeah, seriously.
Wow.
People like the Flavor Bible, which is like a author of like one of the biggest books, like for cooking, are following her. So,
wow,
yeah,
that's precocious. Oh my
Yeah.
God, I hope my kids are something like that.
She's been cooking since she was like 3 or 4. I know I brag about her all the time. And my little one, I think she's going to be a singer. She makes songs about everything. So
That's sweet.
How old is she?
she's going to be 5 soon. But she's like 15 in, in personality. The other day, my oldest had to go to formal, and she's like, I'm going to steal that dress when I get older. But they both, very different personalities, but they both light up my life. Like,
Yeah.
Sound very inventive.
Yeah.
That's fun.
Yeah. I like to think that I'm part of the creativity.
You add to it.
Yeah. So.
All right. So now that we have a nice little recap of you, I think that the best place to start is where the thoughts began, right? Like, when did the thought process? So we're going to be talking about, if you haven't read the title, Surrogacy, and you were a surrogate. And, when did you start thinking about going down this road?
I mean, I tossed around the idea a couple of times, like, over the years. I'm basically like my grandparents' ninth child. My mom was a teen pregnancy, so I was raised with my aunts and uncles, and she was like in the middle of 8 children. So all my younger aunts and uncles are really close in age to me. Now my uncle had possible fertility issues, and I didn't want to pry too much, but I kind of like threw it out there and was like, well, if you need somebody to carry for you. Now, this was only after my first. I was like, if you need somebody to carry for you, then, I'll do it. I hate being pregnant, but I'll do it. And he like laughed it off. And, I mentioned the same thing to like a friend, and thankfully they didn't need me. And then I had my second, and it kind of was more of a yearning that I was thinking, because I was told before I had my first that I was probably not going to be able to have children. I had cervical cancer twice. I'm one of the rare percentage of people that it kind of just like manifests. We think we have an idea of why, but usually cervical cancer comes from HPV. And I was negative to all the testing and everything like that. So, knowing that, like when me and my husband were first talking about having children, having that in the back of my head, like, killed me. And that was just a thought. So fast forward to after I had my second, and I was just like, you know what? I'm good with 2. I'm good. I don't really want to have any more children for myself. So I looked at Brad and I was like, what if I become a surrogate? And he's like, I said, is that crazy? And he's like, yeah. And I was like, I kind of wanna. And he's like, are you sure? He's like, you are miserable pregnant. And I was like, yeah, I kind of want to do it.
Yeah, I feel like that's like a pretty first question is like, did you have good pregnancies? Like,
yeah, most people are like, oh, you must love being pregnant.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I hate it.
So wait, so what inspired you to do it then?
So the fact that, like, and I even said that to my husband when we were kind of going through everything. There was a couple of times, because you have to go through like all kinds of screenings and all kinds of medical stuff. And he was like, is this really worth it? Like, are you? And then I said to him, and this was after we had already met the parents. I was like, remember when we were told that it was a 50-50 shot? And he's like, yeah. And I was like, remember how bad I bawled and how like you felt like? And he's like, yeah. And I was like, and then he like looked at me, and then he just like put his hands up and was like, it's okay, I get it. And then we pushed on.
Right.
because it has to be a mutual thing.
Right.
Yeah. When you're in a relationship, I would assume.
Yeah. Well, I mean, they have to, your partner, whether you're married or not, has to go through the gamut as well. Like, so they get screened.
Really?
And they get, yeah. So you get background checks, of course, for both of you.
Right.
And
Did you go through an agency, or was it private?
I did.
Okay.
I just wanted to make sure that I was protected too. Like not that I wouldn't love to raise another child, but like I didn't want to be like not not stuck, but
Yeah.
you know what I mean? I don't know what the word would
absolutely,
be.
Yeah.
You know?
Left with a child that's
Right.
not yours, right?
Right. And I also didn't want it to be like, you know, I didn't have any say in what happens in my body. Like, you know what I mean? Because now I'm not here to say something about, you know, abortion for other people, but for me, I don't want, if I can help it, I didn't want to have
Sure, absolutely.
an abortion. I just didn't want to go through that kind of trauma. So I wanted to make sure that I was covered in all those aspects. So when I did the research, I went with the oldest agency for surrogacy, and they have the best track record and everything like that. And I don't know if you know Bill Handel, like Handel on the Law. He has his own like radio show and stuff like that.
It sounds familiar.
It probably sounds.
Yeah.
He's really funny and he like jokes and
Yeah.
stuff. Well, anyway, he's the lawyer that started the surrogacy agency. So the surrogacy agency that I went through was CSP, and they have an East Coast and a West Coast. I think they have somewhere in the middle too, but their East Coast division is like their headquarters is in Annapolis. But they know everything about surrogacy, like things that I didn't even think about. They knew, and that's when I knew that I had to go through an agency, because I also didn't have somebody that I really wanted to do it for, you know.
Yeah.
And I think it was a blessing, because if I did it for family or a friend, it might have been weird.
Yeah.
Like you'd have less autonomy.
Right. And also like I'd feel more guilty, or like I'd be like, oh my God, like, are they watching me drink this coffee right now? Like, you know what I mean?
Right,
Things
right.
like that.
Yeah.
So they were not monitoring you virtually at
To an
all.
extent.
Okay.
Yeah, they have contracts for me to basically like little things like, oh, they didn't want me to dye my hair, or if I was like in a nail salon for like an extended period of time, I should wear a mask or something like that. Which is funny because I'm in the beauty industry.
Yeah.
And like there was things like I was like, well, I get gray, like I'm like, and I'm in the beauty industry, so like I kind of have to color my hair. So I agreed for like that, whatever. I went back to my natural color, and I didn't color my hair at all for that year or so. And they agreed to like update me.
Do they pick you? Like, do they go
Yeah.
through like a catalog?
It's like a dating service. So it's really funny because like I got 3 profiles, and I'm assuming they got 3 profiles to start with.
Yeah.
Well, part of it is that you go down to Annapolis and you have like an assessment with a psychologist. And
Do they pay for you to go down there?
So that's kind of, well, the first initial meeting, like
Yeah.
if you're going to be rejected or accepted by the agency, it's not. It's like kind of on your dime. So we go down. They interviewed. Now this is after all the medical stuff has gone through, which I didn't think they were going to accept me.
That's what. Yeah. That's what.
Like, so I was kind of like, and I even said that to my husband, like, what are the chances that they accept me, you know? And he's like, all right, you know, and then
Yeah.
I think part of it was kind of like, he was like, yeah, you're not going to get
Yeah,
accepted.
he
Like,
didn't
but their whole thing was, you carried 2 healthy ones to term, so we don't see a problem, and it's not like any of your hardware except for the womb.
Yeah.
So, you know, we're good. But we went down to Annapolis, and I had to take a personality test, which is really funny because it had like things like I can read people's minds and like things like that. And I'm like, I kind of can, like, you know. I'm like, are they gonna think I'm crazy? But yeah, it was like really random questions, and then or what I think is to be random, and then you get interviewed by a psychologist who talks to you and your husband, asks you all the normal questions like, why are you trying to do this, whatever, blah, 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 just to kind of get a read on everybody. And then she asks you, or depending on where you're at, I had a great counselor. Her name is Barbara. So she asked me, you know, my hobbies, my interests, things like that, and matched us up as good as possible. Like, would I be opposed to carry for a same-sex couple? Or I'm assuming this is for everybody as well. Of course, I don't care, like I'm like, whatever. And so my three profiles were a single gay father,
Okay.
or prospective father, and an older married couple who were kind of like out of my stratosphere when it comes to intelligence. Like, he was like a biophysicist and but I think they matched us because I also was okay with like being an interracial couple or whatever. And then she was like a lawyer or something like that. So it was like, am I really gonna have anything in common? Like, and so
Is that important? Like, not to stop you, but is that kind of bonding necessarily important here?
I think to an extent, like, obviously, we don't have to be besties or whatever, but like, you have to get along to an extent, and you also have to have stuff I'm carrying their baby. I need them to trust me. I need them to know that, I just wanted to have a better rapport, because I also was hoping that they wouldn't just be like, thanks for my baby, peace out. Like, you know what I mean?
Right.
Yeah.
And if I didn't have that rapport with them, then I feel like,
There wasn't even that chance.
right.
Yeah.
They would have just been out.
So you were looking for a more long-term relationship with
I
this
was
child.
hoping, yeah.
Right.
Like, I mean,
Interesting,
I
okay.
understand, like, you have to get on with your life, and I don't want to be that tether, I don't want it to be forced. But the couple that we ultimately picked ended up being in this beauty industry as well.
Oh.
They're local, which kind of was one of their criteria too, because they kind of wanted to be able to visit whenever. And they were just so chill, and they're closer to our age. They literally mirrored our ages. And just like I said, they were just so chill, and they were like, I was like, is there anything that you want me to eat? Like, things like that. Like, I'm being like, this isn't my baby. Like, I'm like, whatever, like, what do you want?
Yeah.
Because this is what you would do if this was yours,
Right. Aside from the hair dye and like the nail salon
Right.
exposure,
Right.
were there any weird stipulations or?
No, they were
Okay.
like, you've had 2 healthy babies. We're going to defer to you. Like,
Cool.
They were so nice.
And to make sure that people understand, it was like completely the two of theirs. Like, it was her.
Yeah, so they had 3 embryos left from, they tried for themselves.
Right.
They,
In vitro.
yeah, so they tried IVF a lot of times, unfortunately, and just could never get pregnant. And they had 3 left. And I was like, okay, the pressure's on, because they weren't going to harvest anymore.
Yeah.
Their journey was going to be done.
I just
Yeah,
got like
I
chills.
know,
Yeah.
I know.
So like, I was literally like, I've never prayed more for a baby in my life.
Not even for your own.
Not even for my own. My own, I was kind of like, oh, if it happens, it happens. I mean, of course I did pray, like, oh, I hope I get pregnant, but like, not like, I was literally in church, like, praying for this baby. And when I got the transfer and everything, I was like, show me a sign. Everything. 11s are big to me, because it's like my birth number, or my birthday, my husband's birthday. So it's kind of like a theme in my life. And as soon as I got the transfer, I looked up at the clock. It was 3:11, and I was like, that's the sign. Like, I know it's going to be good. So I waited 4 days to start testing. And on the 4th day, there was like a faint line. And then a couple days later, I think I did 6 days. And then it started to get darker and darker. And I was like, yeah, I think this is it. And then
It was
we
on the
did
first try.
First try.
Wow.
That makes me like so happy for
Yeah.
them too.
Yeah. So if they wanted to try and do surrogacy again, they have 2 other embryos that they can do and give her a sibling, hopefully.
Yeah.
Is there any talk of you giving them another child?
They would like, well, they said in the middle of my last they said, oh, you know, we wish you could do the next one, but a fertility clinic won't even touch me. Because I've had 3 cesareans and all these other abdominal surgeries, that they won't even consider it because the uterus is too compromised.
So this is the end of your
That's
journey.
the end
as a
of my
surrogate.
journey, unfortunately. Yeah,
Interesting.
I would have totally done it
Okay.
again. And I guess I could push the envelope and go privately and do it, but they probably won't. You know, they probably won't. You know, or I would say like a fertility doctor wouldn't recommend
Sure.
that I do it.
Sure.
Mhm.
Like
Right.
if they want the best chances.
Right.
Like the bang for your buck factor, I guess you would say, you know? So, you know, we all got really lucky that it was the first time, and they wanted a daughter.
Wow,
And they
that's
have a
amazing.
daughter.
That's
so,
amazing.
So yeah, it's good. They even said to me, like, when they first met my daughters, they're like, we think it's like a good sign
Yeah,
that you
that
have
you had
daughters.
girls.
Yeah.
How was the pregnancy itself?
This was actually one of my most difficult pregnancies, because with surrogacy and IVF in general, you have to take a lot of shots, and you feel pregnant like almost immediately. Like,
Okay.
so because it's like tricking your body into being pregnant already before you get the transfer.
Interesting.
So you're kind of playing catch up with the embryo, and so that part was difficult, but also I found out that I was allergic to the oil that the hormones were carried in. So that was like a good 8 to 10 weeks in that I found out that I was allergic to this oil, and I was having like asthma attacks and breathing
man.
and welts all over my butt,
Oh,
like, because
no.
that's where you have to give your injections.
Yeah.
So I was like, why can't I breathe? Like, this is really bad. And then I ended up having a hemorrhage.
Your ab.
No, I guess because IVF, it happens in a lot of other pregnancies, but with IVF, it's more common to have a subcurial hemorrhage.
Yeah.
Because everything's more vascular. It's almost like a blister in there. And then sometimes they rupture and it's like a ton of blood. So I thought I was miscarrying. And I was like, we literally, when I started to have this hemorrhage, that Monday we had the confirmation of heartbeat. So Thursday, I thought I started to miscarry.
Oh.
And I was like, I cannot tell them that I'm losing their baby. Like,
Wow.
so I was like freaking out.
I have many questions.
Yeah.
But I think the first one. Okay. So in Becky's research, we learned that there are states that actually outlaw surrogacy as a profession. Not, I think they call it altruistic surrogacy, where it's like, if
A
you
family
wanted to,
member,
right, like if I
yeah.
wanted to carry Becky's baby or something, like, that's fine. But if I wanted to pay Becky to carry mine, that's a problem.
Yeah.
Not in New Jersey, but in New York and other states, that's surprising.
New Jersey, they just changed it. Oh, excuse me.
It's okay.
New Jersey, they just changed it because I believe in Jersey it was still, well, Jersey, it's not illegal.
She's in PA.
Yeah.
Okay.
In PA, it's weird because it's a Commonwealth. So, you know, it's kind of anything kind of goes in that
Yeah.
respect, I guess.
Okay.
But the easiest states to be a surrogate is, I believe, California, Maryland, and I want to say somewhere up north.
Okay.
Maybe like, you know, one of the New England states.
Sure.
But for sure, Maryland and California, which is why the agency is in Annapolis. So,
okay.
but it's really, it was completely outlawed in New York because
And still is.
it still is. And
Right.
I think they're talking about, or maybe they just, you know, went ahead with, you know, reversing it because there was a surrogate that had it and then like reneged on the whole deal.
Okay.
And it wasn't even her child. It was like, so they're like, forget it. You ruined
Yeah.
Um,
it for everybody kind of deal.
Interesting.
And that was back in like the 80s, I think.
Oh,
maybe early 90s. But it's been a while for that. And for me, like, I couldn't leave Pennsylvania after 20 weeks Because if I were to have it, say, in New Jersey, even though like Phillipsburg is like 15 minutes from me,
Yeah.
If I were to have the baby in New Jersey, it would have my name. And
Whoa.
they would have to adopt their own baby.
Get out of here.
Yeah.
That I don't think Becky learned.
Yeah. So it's really weird.
You didn't send me that screenshot. Were you waiting for the surprise? What the hell?
So it's really weird and like state to state basis, but for sure in Jersey, it was like, you cannot go and have this baby in Jersey because there would be added costs for litigation and all this other stuff. So.
And added stress.
Right.
But so the question was going to be and is, you did it as you were compensated.
Right. Yeah. They took care of like medical and things like that. And I did get compensated for the surrogacy in general.
So let's say, right, going back to when you believed for a second that you might have been miscarrying.
Mm-hmm.
In the event you miscarry, do you not get paid?
So you don't get paid like everybody thinks you get paid. Like you don't get paid like, say like an X amount of money at the end.
Mm-hmm.
It's per milestone. So for me to get a confirmation of heartbeat, I got, X amount.
That's interesting.
So
it's like incremental payments.
Right. So going back to like, if I didn't carry to term, they said, okay, well, if it's X amount of weeks plus days, that's when. And then, if I had to do extra procedures like a DNC or something like that, then they would give me just for like pain and suffering. Because that's really what the compensation is considered.
Okay.
It's considered pain and suffering. It's not like, oh, thanks for my baby, I'm buying, you know what I mean? I'm paying cash or whatever. It's kind of like, it's just like to make your life easier because this sucks.
Right.
Or, just in general, just to kind of make your life easier. Like, I could have gotten like X amount of massages towards the end, or even like a maid service. The only thing that I did like take advantage of was Grubhub, because I was so sick. I was like, I cannot cook anything. Like, especially for the first beginning, like the beginning of the pregnancy. Now, mind you, I was throwing up the day that I had her. Like I threw up the whole time.
Oh,
but the beginning was always really, really rough for me. And Grubhub saved my life.
We don't sponsor.
Any delivery service, really. Sorry, no sponsoring. Although I am salty with them right now. Now that I'm not pregnant. This is so on so many levels. Is this interesting? Thanks.
I couldn't believe that it was. I couldn't believe it was illegal in some states.
Yeah, it's
in
illegal,
a lot of states.
It's illegal overseas in general.
Oh yeah,
and that's why all
everywhere like even Europe.
Europe is one of the biggest.
Wow, they're so progressive.
You would think.
Yeah.
But it's just, I don't know if it's because IVF is not, I think it's something to do with the IVF in general.
Okay.
Is surrogacy like paid for by insurance at all?
No.
Okay.
That comes from, there's a trust put in for from the parents or the family of, whoever, and that money goes to like there's a little bit allotted for everything. So like I didn't have to pay for my lawyer, which is great. And any other medical expenses. Thankfully, my insurance covered the surrogacy.
Sure.
Like my pregnancy.
That's interesting.
Yeah. Some insurances don't, which I was very lucky mine did, but they would also like, I guess, get you signed up for like Obamacare or whatever if it didn't.
Right.
But and then whatever rolls over as far as expenses go comes out of that trust.
Okay.
Yeah.
So at some point we definitely want to learn how your family reacted to everything. But earlier you'd mentioned that one of the options that you could have paired with was like a single gay father.
Right.
And one of the things Becky screenshotted me earlier was a difference between traditional surrogacy and I think it's called gestational surrogacy. So in one case you used, to quote you, your hardware, and in another case it would not be your hardware. Had you chosen this single gay father, how...
He had a donor.
He had a donor already,
so my criteria for my matches were they had to have their own egg donor.
Okay.
And however they came up with an embryo is up to them. You know, like, I don't know how. But I was like, I couldn't, because then it's my child.
Right. Yeah. Well, that's why I want to know how you felt about that.
Yeah. And had it been for a family member, it might have been a little bit easier for me to donate an egg. But then that's weird. It's like, I'm your mommy aunt, or I'm like, you know what I mean?
Right.
Like, you're whatever.
Yeah, that's a weird, I think that if my sisters asked for my egg, I'd probably give it to them.
Yeah.
But I don't know. It's like you don't know until you are there.
It's personal. And just for me, like, I didn't want to be so removed from a child that was mine.
Right.
Because then that's what I would consider it.
Right. It's interesting how many men are like willing to be sperm donors, for a few extra bucks, but like to women, it's a lot more personal.
And I do know surrogates, and that's the great part about CSP, because that they mandate every 3 months we go to a group therapy.
Oh, that's awesome.
That's really great.
Which is why I can't say how great they were enough, because they literally thought of everything. Like even like things that I didn't even think about, like as far as like if I were to pass away in an accident, like how long do you keep me on life support?
Wow.
To bring the baby to
my
term.
God.
Yeah. So and for me, I'm just like, if something good could come out of it, and the counselors and stuff like that were like, well, you don't know what kind of toll it'll take on your family.
Yeah.
To see you there but not there.
Yeah.
And then it, that kind of helped push kind of my decision, because I was kind of like, well, I'm not going to be alive. Let my husband make that decision. And that was also a tricky part. And the only time that me and the parents kind of disagreed was when there was that, little bit of a hiccup, because to them, they're like, our baby. Like, we want our baby to have the best chance. So, of course, 40 weeks. You know what I mean?
Right.
But God forbid something were to happen to me at 20 weeks, and here my daughters are seeing me lifeless for 20 more weeks.
Right.
Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So
and on a monetary note, the cost of keeping you
that would have had to been for
they'd
them. They would have had to
it.
cover it. Yeah. But I just was worried more about my family's emotions, and my husband was like also in line with me, like, well, if something good could come of it. But I was like, well, you don't know how you're gonna feel until that happens. So let's like let you make that decision. And I think I give a lot of credit to my counselors, because she like called them up and was like, the chances of it happening are very slim.
Yeah.
But out of respect for her family, like, this kind of has to happen.
Right.
Yeah.
So they kind of backed off, and thankfully everything was fine. But yeah, I didn't even think of that. Like, who thinks of that?
Yeah.
Like,
there's so many levels of of interest here. I mean, this is incredible.
So they do these surrogacy groups, and you get to hear stories from all these wonderful women, and a lot of them are egg donors, and they just think of it very altruistically, like I'm a little more selfish, like, I think than them. I'm like, oh, I want to be like you, but I can't. But they're like, we're helping, like we're doing this for people who can't. And
Do you have to, is there a requirement to have kids to be able to be a surrogate?
yeah, well, at least for this agency, I don't know how it is.
I read that like it was highly recommended that you have your own children to be a surrogate.
Yeah,
It's like proof of performance.
exactly.
You know?
Well,
It's
it's
not
not
even
even, it's
incompetent cervix or
yeah,
something.
but it wasn't even performance though that it was talking about. It was talking about like you and I could sit here and say how we would feel after having a kid, but like we don't know how we would feel. Like
Right.
you had children and you knew how you
think it is
felt
like an
after.
attachment
Yeah,
thing.
That's interesting.
it's like an
Okay.
emotional like.
Can you do
yeah,
it?
Yeah.
And working with a bunch of women, they were like, you're crazy. Like,
Yeah.
you know what I mean? They're like, I couldn't do it. Like, if I'm doing all the work, it's mine. Like, you know?
Right.
Yeah.
No. And that's, I would probably feel the same way. So,
Yeah.
I think I don't think I want to bear kids, but I think that if I ever did bear my own children, I think I would be able to like
bear
help
someone else's.
bear
Yeah.
someone else's. But I just don't think I want to be in that realm
for
at all.
me, because I think hating pregnancy, like, definitely worked in my favor.
All of my friends hate pregnancy.
Yeah, I think it worked in my favor because I think part of me was like, is this just something I'm going through? Mm-hmm. You know? And it wasn't like, it was more like a cold. And
An
like, when's the
enjoyment,
time
yeah.
up? Like, you know what I
Oh,
mean?
yeah.
And and I honestly, with my own children, no, I love them.
Yeah.
You know, they're like the light of my life. But I didn't have that, oh, I love you already, you
Yeah.
know, like moment when they were in my stomach. Like, I was kind of like, it was like I was very removed from
Okay.
pregnancy.
And it was
almost,
because it was you
I
had
think part of that was,
you know, struggle.
but it also felt very alien to me. Like, you know what I mean? Every time they moved, I thought it was cool. It was kind of funny.
Yeah.
Especially when they're big and they're like moving all around and stuff. But it was very like strange.
Interesting. So you didn't feel any sort of bonding?
No,
With
it wasn't
any?
with any.
Okay.
And it wasn't until after my daughters were born, and the bonding process happened a little later with my oldest because I had an emergency C-section and I lost a
Okay.
lot of blood with her. So I couldn't hold her for the first couple of days. So that bonding didn't happen till much later.
Yeah.
You know, but it wasn't until like you're holding them, you're feeding them, you're doing all these things that you're like, oh, you know, like,
I bore you.
yeah. Well, with my first, I was kind of like, I thought it was like a babysitting job. Like, I was like, is somebody gonna pick her up? Like,
Yeah.
not that I was hoping that somebody would pick her up, but like I was just so removed from the situation, and I was so used to being the babysitter,
Right.
that I was like, this is weird.
That's so funny. I had a friend that like had a child and she was like, I don't understand why people aren't honest about having a kid. Like, I just went from me and my husband to some stranger sleeping with us,
Yeah.
and like I didn't love her. Like,
I don't know you.
I don't know her. Like, but I guess everyone's different.
Right. Of course. And there are some women that are like, oh my God, I'm so in love already. And they're like looking at these garbled ultrasounds and they're like, oh, you see, it's so cute. I'm like, and
Maybe they think they have to say it.
maybe I don't know if it's conditioning, and I don't know if
Right.
it's like, you know, kind of the family aspect, but for me, I just kind of was like, it was just a means to an end, and it was like the end product is what mattered to me.
Right.
Not,
So I feel like that really answers the question of like your emotional state, right? Like,
yeah, my dad swore up and down that I was like gonna be a wreck. Like, he's like, I don't agree with this. Like, I don't think you should do it.
what did your daughters think? Because
So
What was it like for them seeing mommy pregnant, but
Yeah.
you having to explain that, like, well, it's not a sibling.
Yeah, so I didn't tell my oldest until like I got approved and got the meeting and everything
Yeah.
like that. And then I told her, I was like, so I'm gonna be having somebody else's baby. And she was like 10 when we started the journey.
yeah,
So she was like, oh, that's cool. But then she was like, wait, how are you gonna have somebody else's baby?
yeah,
And then I had to explain to her, like, oh, they're going to just put their egg their fertilized baby and stuff like that. And so I,
Yeah.
I was like, it's not mommy's. It's like not like your sister or brother. Like it's not anything from me. And she's like, oh, okay. And then that was it.
It's so funny because people don't give credit to kids enough,
Yeah,
like of what they can comprehend.
Exactly. It's like when you explain, different things,
Yeah.
like, same-sex marriage or
Yeah.
whatever. Like I took my daughter to a commitment ceremony years ago before it was legal. And I was like, oh, yeah, some of my friends are getting married, but it's 2 girls. And she was like, oh, okay.
People underestimate
Yeah.
children. They really
Yeah,
do.
and
They
then-
also underestimate children's like blind apathy. Like they
Yeah.
don't give a shit. Like as
Yeah,
long as
and-
everyone's happy.
And the funny thing is after the ceremony and stuff like that, I was like, so what do you think? And she was like, it was weird. And I was like, why? Why was it weird? She was like, because they kissed. And I was like, was it weird that they kissed because there was 2 girls or just kissing in general? She's like, in general. Like she's just like not like
Yeah.
a kissy person. She thinks it's weird when me and my husband, kiss or anything like that. She's always like, ooh.
It's funny.
So I was happy to know that it wasn't because she was a bigot. It was just we're not raising those.
That's amazing. We're not raising those.
But my little one, when I told her, she hadn't been around pregnant people. Mm-hmm. She was the last grandchild before my brothers had their kids, and she's not around my brothers' significant others enough to kind of
understand,
realize.
yeah.
I mean, now she knows that, when you're carrying a baby, it's usually yours.
Yeah.
But back then, she didn't know because she was only like 2. She
Yeah.
just turned 2 when we started. And so for her to think of like, oh, yeah, there's a baby in there, but she didn't know it had to be, usually it's yours.
Right.
So I didn't even like get into it with her. I was just like, this isn't mommy's baby. And like, so every time I said, whose baby is this? And then she'd be like, oh, and then
Yeah.
she would say the parents' names and stuff. And then I was like, is it my baby? And she's like, no, I'm your baby. Like,
Yeah.
So that was it.
She took ownership of that.
Yeah. She locked it down. She was like, nope, you're my mom. But it's nice now because the baby is like the parents consider me kind of like family, and they consider my daughters kind of like the big sisters.
Oh, that's cute.
So they welcomed us with open arms even after, which is so nice because my daughters really fell in love with them.
Okay. So you all have an active relationship.
Yeah, we actually saw each other a few weeks ago.
Very nice.
We try to get together as often as possible.
And they were there during the delivery and everything?
So, yeah. So
Yeah, who was in the room?
So usually with a C-section, you're only allowed one person.
Okay.
And like the agency was like, don't feel obligated to like have them in there and whatever. And I was just like, my husband saw the first one by accident. He's like, no. And like the second one, he even sat out.
Yeah.
Like my aunt came in with my second one. He was like, it was funny the way he told me, because he was like, if you don't mind, I kind of want to meet her the same time Samara meets her, and not for nothing, like I can't get it out of my head, because when with my first one, he was behind the curtain and everything was fine, but they were like, oh, do you want to come and see your daughter? Like after they clean her up and like weigh her and everything like that. And he's like, sure. And he's not. And out of reflex, he looks over
And sees
I
your,
like
like, stomach.
Frankenstein.
Yeah.
Yeah. And like I have like intestines. It's like a horror movie. And my husband's very squeamish. So
Yeah.
he was like, never again. Like I can't. So I was like, no, he's not going to be in there. And like, who else is going to be there for me? Like, so I was like, for sure, I want the mother to be in there because like, this is her moment.
Yeah.
But I would love for the father to be in there too. And they're like, yeah, usually we don't do that because it's like a liability thing. And what
Yeah.
if they pass out? And like, we only have X amount of room plus X amount of staff. And we have to, the priority is really you and the baby.
Yeah.
So I somehow convinced them the morning of the delivery. It's like, and the anesthesiologist was like, all right, if they sit down and do not move, we will let them in the room. So they sat behind me, like behind my head.
Yeah.
And then they had the curtain up because they were like, we're not taking chances of them, you know, passing out or anything like that. And then I just was like, to everybody in the room, I was like, make sure you tell me when you're going to bring her over because I want to see their face. Do not show them before I get to look. So I'm like breaking my neck, like looking at them when they were like, okay, we're going to bring her out. And I'm like, so I got to see the expression on their faces.
That's
and stuff like that. Even though they had masks
so happy?
on. Oh my God. Like they had masks on their faces, but you can see, like even with their eyes, like everything, how they lit up and stuff. She started crying right away and he just looked so happy. And I have goosebumps now just talking about it, but it was like the most rewarding, single best feeling in my life. And like, that's crazy because like I saw my own children.
Right. But this is selfless. It's the same act, but it's selfless.
It was just crazy to be able to see, and then like just to see her and like talk to her. And I actually shared on my Instagram not too long ago because she just turned a year. The mother, and I didn't know it until a few days later, took a video of them showing her to me. So she took a video of me meeting the baby for the first time. So I shared that video on my Instagram and it was just like, you know, me talking to her and saying like, hi, Peanut. And then she, like, as soon as I called her Peanut, she started crying. and then the nurse was like joking. She's like, oh, she didn't like that, you know? But it's like she knows me, even though we don't see each other like months for months. She's like super affectionate with me.
I was gonna ask because she's heard your voice for 9 months. I mean, you have to.
Yeah, and it's weird because, like, I mean, I don't know. They got to have their skin to skin moment, which was great. They got to do all the traditional parent things that happen after birth, which I absolutely love. But I didn't think it was gonna be like, oh yeah, she's gonna know who I am. Like, I mean, I guess you do because she's hearing my voice for so long. And I bought a book for them to record their voice and read to her. So like I was
sweet.
like, you know,
That's
so that they could
cute.
hear too. Because like I was like, they're not gonna hear, or she's not gonna hear him as much as me. So I did that, and it was funny because every time they would talk to her, like, well, on the book, she'd be like jumping and like it was really cute.
That's really cute.
Yeah. It was just the best. Seriously, I would do it over again, even though I hate pregnancy. I can't.
That's crazy.
Stress it. Like, I would do it again, just for the feeling alone, just to know that you're making somebody's like life.
Right.
Not even just their day.
Yeah, you're giving them like the ultimate gift.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think it's special that, I mean, it's what you wanted as well, that you found someone that you can still stay active. Because I think that if I was born like through surrogacy, that I would want to, like, as an adult, show appreciation, like, to whomever it was that, you know, gave my parents the ability to have me.
Yeah, and I was like perfectly okay with like kind of fading into the background. Like, I just wanted to like get updates, and that's part of in our contract. That was kind of like a thing, but I said, you know, I'll defer to you because that's a touchy subject. Like, you know,
but I mean, social media is so crazy nowadays that, like, I'm sure it's so
not as much
like,
of a stigma.
if they have social media, like, you can follow along too. Like,
so we do follow each other on Instagram, which is really nice. And I mean, they send me videos anyway, like, you know, like through text and stuff. But I was like, and I didn't follow them, and they didn't follow me until after the birth because like, I didn't want them to be like, oh, you know, she's
what is she doing?
She's here, she's there. She didn't wear a mask at the nail salon.
No. Like, just like, even in general, like, I didn't want it to be like, if in case they were to be like, peace out. You know what I mean? I didn't want it to be that kind of thing. So we had this breakfast, and it was just me and them because my husband was working and my girls were at school. And it was one of our routine appointments to see the baby and stuff like that. And I said to them, all right, so what do you plan on doing? Like, I just want to prepare myself for like what's going to happen after the baby's born. Yeah. Do you plan on telling her? I'm going to defer to you guys, like, whatever you guys, I'll respect whatever you guys decide to do. And, like, I could have cried because he was like, we want her to know, like, everybody that was involved. Like, we want her to know that all these people, you know, made it possible, and that she's loved so much that, you know, everybody here is a part of why she's here.
Right.
I'm too much of an emotional person to hear this. Woo!
But
For those who can't see, she's getting a little wet-eyed.
But yeah, it was like, and I, like, was just so taken aback because, like, that's exactly what I wanted to hear. But I didn't want to say, like,
Yeah.
you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And, you know, like I said, they love my daughters. They treat us like family. They, you know, we exchange gifts from Christmas and birthdays. And I met them out in the city for Mother's Day. Because me and my oldest were going to a museum. And we all met for, like, brunch for her first Mother's Day. And I got her a little pendant that had the coordinates of the hospital
That's
on there, because I was like, this is where you became a mom, you know.
That's so cute.
So
It's like a fairy tale.
it really, I mean, if I thought 2-3 years ago this is how my surrogacy journey was going to happen, like, I would have signed up years ago. Like, you know what I mean? Like, part of it is because I've heard so many stories, because when you go to these mandatory things, you hear horror stories about how some parents are treating some of the surrogates, or so standoffish, or so cold, or so distant, or, you know, demanding, or whatever the case is. And, like, I had, like, the best situation possible.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah, I really can't.
That's great. Okay, cool. So I wanna I wanna jump into we are doing a new section where we allow our listeners to ask some questions.
Okay.
I know that there were a bunch. I don't know if there's many that you didn't cover, but Laura's gonna look and then we'll go from there.
Yeah, actually, give me 1 second.
She has to read through.
Oh, I wanted to tell you, because we were talking about how my family reacted. Now, my immediate family was cool. My dad kind of had, like, a little thing, like, where he thought I was going to be super attached. And I, you know, obviously proved him wrong.
Yeah.
But a lot of my other family was, like, against IVF, because it's, like, creating life that goes to the whole old school Catholic kind of deal.
Yeah.
And then I was kind of like, well, I have my sins to atone for, and if this is considered a sin, then I'm going to deal with it.
Yeah.
And honestly, like, I can't see God being like, shame on you.
No.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I was just like, it is what it is, and, like, I'm doing it. Oh, well. And once I was pregnant, they were like, whatever. Like, they were cool. The biggest surprise was my grandparents. Like, old school Catholic, Puerto Rican, don't really understand much of science, anything.
Yeah.
And when I told them, I was like, so guys, I'm pregnant. And they were, like, elated. They were, like, so excited. And I was like, it's not Brad's. And then they were like, and, like, their face fell. And then I was like, it's not mine either. And then they, like, looked at me like, what? And then I was like, I'm a surrogate. And then I explained to them, you know, that I was basically just the oven. And they were like, oh, okay. Didn't say anything else about it. I thought they would be, like, so upset.
Yeah.
And they weren't at all, which is a really nice surprise that the oldest of the bunch were, like, so cool about it.
Did you have like friends and stuff asking inappropriate questions about it?
I mean, your guy friends sometimes are like, oh, do you have sex with the husband? I'm like,
That's it.
No.
I read that does that happen sometimes?
I don't
know. That's a whole other conversation.
I mean, I guess in, like, other countries,
well,
maybe?
I guess it happened. Never mind. Yeah, a whole
Handmaid's Tale.
whole nother conversation.
Handmaid's Tale, but like, I mean, no, like, no.
Yeah. Did you find some?
90% of these are, how did you feel giving the baby up, and or how did you avoid getting attached?
Honestly, I took it as like a babysitting job.
Right.
Like, that's how I looked at it. I was like, the ultimate babysitting job. Like, I just gotta get it to this point,
Right.
and then that's it. Like
You said, it means to an end,
yeah,
and you knew the end was going to be a great gift.
The only thing that was like hard in a
Sorry,
sense,
guys. I live in the farm.
the only thing that was like hard in a sense was like just the injections and like mentally dealing with the physical changes of your body when you're going through this hormonal treatment.
So someone actually did ask, what's the most unexpected struggle? So would you say like that's probably it?
Because I thought that Brad was going to be like giving me the shots.
Yeah.
And I should have known better because he's so squeamish. And then I was like, well, maybe my 10, 11-year-old, she was like, you know, depending on when it was, but I was like, maybe she can do it. And then I was like, no, because like if she gets mad at me one day, she's gonna like jam it in. Like, so I was like, oh God. And I'll never forget, it was like a week before my birthday, or a couple days before my birthday, and I had to start the hormone treatment, and I had to give myself an injection by myself, and like I'm looking in the mirror and, stabbing myself. And the first one was the hardest because I was like, and I was cussing up a storm. Like I was like, because I was like scared.
Yeah.
And then after that, it was a piece of cake. It sucked. And there was like neuropathy for a while. So like I would touch, like if you like put your hands on your hips or like somebody slapped your butt or whatever, it hurt.
Yeah.
It was like hard. And it was a good 6 months even after I had the baby. That it was still there.
That long lasting.
Yeah. And I don't know if some of it had to do with because I was allergic and I had like these welts and all that stuff. But yeah, it sucks because you have to give yourself shots for 11 weeks. And that's all IVF. So, women who are going through fertility struggles and stuff, God bless you. Because sometimes it doesn't take on the first try. And like I've had a lot of surrogates. God bless her. There was this one surrogate that I got really close to. She unfortunately had a few transfers that weren't successful. So I can't imagine coming down from those hormones because like I know what I'm going to be like during menopause. Like it's going to not be pretty.
Is pregnancy any indication of what menopause will be like?
No, but I think because they kind of put you in a menopause state, they freeze you whatever so that you don't ovulate, so that you can line up to certain things, and then you go through this false pregnancy kind of thing when you get the transfer.
Right.
So you like get this crazy, like I got hot flashes, I got whatever, and I normally am pretty even keeled when it's like my time of the month. So people usually don't really know. And I even said, wow, I'm being really mean. Like I said, and Brent's like, a little bit. Because it was like any normal person, any normal mom will tell you, you say something nice to your kids like 3 times, like pick up that toy, pick up that toy, pick up that toy. And then you lose your stuff.
Yeah.
I don't know if you can cuss or not. I don't care. So I'm just going to try and keep it PG. But anyway, so, you lose your shit. So like you scream like a crazy person at your kids because you've told them 20 times to do something nicely, and then they only listen to you when you go crazy. I didn't have those, 3-4 times. It was like on the first try. Like it was like, pick up your stuff. Like I was like, like everything's a mess, and was just screaming all the time for like those couple of weeks. It was bad.
Yeah.
So I think that's what I'm going to be like during menopause because I'm not like that now.
Yeah. You can mentally prepare.
Well, it's not me. It's everybody else.
They can mentally prepare.
Well,
There, again, most of there are like two dozen questions, which is pretty cool, but they're all kind of the same. But one person did say, not a question, just thank you for giving the priceless gift to someone. So I thought that was a nice way to end
I don't need to be thanked, and I mean, they say it all the time, like, thank you, I love you, like, whatever, and I'm just like, don't thank me, like, it's serious. It was so good to do it. Like, I'm so happy that I could do it.
So we are over an hour. So what we like to do with each guest is have them say like a final word of advice. Just your final thoughts and advice to someone or whatever it is you want to tell them.
Anybody that has great pregnancies, vaginal deliveries are best, because if you have C-sections, you're limited. But if you can, have an easy delivery or easy pregnancy or whatever, I recommend surrogacy, because like you will never, ever feel that rewarded ever in your life. As long as you don't have like an emotional attachment, of course. But if you can mentally prepare and you think that you can do it, definitely look into it. Because, again, like I said, it's just... And every time I see her face and I see them, and they love her. You can tell. They post her every day. They post her every single day, just like any other, like, in-love parents. And it's just... It's great.
That's amazing.
It really
That's so
is.
cool. Laura, do you have any final words?
Yeah, I mean, this was fascinating. So thank you for coming on and sharing this.
Yeah, I'm excited you came. I think it was nice and like refreshing, and I think that this might help someone or give that final push someone needed to do it if they were thinking about it.
Also, like, another thing with the surrogacy, like, make sure you can give yourself a shot, because like it's a pretty decent shot. Like, it has to go in the muscle, like so it's a big needle. A couple friends were like, oh, I would totally do it and whatever, and then I showed them
the shot
in comparison to like my deodorant, and they were like, ugh. Yeah, it's a decent
Yeah.
and
let's not
and now, mind you, I got pregnant on the first try, so
my stomach just
let's
turned.
not deter someone. Yeah.
No, I don't want to
kidding.
deter you, but I also want it to
Prepare.
be like, like,
no, it's helpful.
this is the first thing that you kind of have to think about.
Yeah.
But it was, for me, like 187 shots. Total.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yikes.
So, and that's every day. I mean, obviously not 187 every day.
No.
But, like, over the course of,
Right.
of the 11 weeks.
Yeah.
So if you have failed transfers or, miscarriages or whatever, and I think that also kind of gives you a little more compassion to someone who's kind of going through a fertility thing. And I always had compassion towards them, but it gives me a whole new respect of that. Because like, that's just heartbreaking to
It's a good point.
imagine, doing all this and then...
But for somebody who is going through IVF and it's not taking, like, this hopefully allows somebody to come to the realization that, there are other options.
Yeah, totally. And there are a lot of beautiful, loving women that are willing to do it.
Right.
And not for, because, I mean, they don't pay us enough. Like, you know what I mean? Like, it's not like we're not getting to come up. So it's not like it's a way to get rich,
right,
or whatever. So we're doing it for just the good reasons. And the agency, I don't know how other agencies work, but our agency really does a good job with filtering out people who are
in it for money.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
good.
I read that too.
Yeah, and they are just, I can't stress enough.
And what was the agency again?
CSP, so Center for Surrogate Parenting. They're based out of California, but they have agencies.
A couple. Yeah.
You said Annapolis, right?
Yeah, Annapolis, and somewhere in the Midwest too.
Yeah.
Interesting.
That was
Very
great.
interesting.
Yeah, thank you so much for coming out here and sharing.
Thanks for inviting me.
It makes me so happy to think of like this family that you've like helped create, you know.
This might be the only episode where we've ended on truly happy notes. So thank you for that.
Yeah, of course.
But yeah, all right, cool. So whoever's listening, thanks for coming back, or whoever's new, thanks for coming and listening for the first time. We like to say at every end of every episode, if you could share with whoever it is, whether it be one person or a couple people, it's just another person that we can help or inspire. So yeah, so like, subscribe, comment, share, all of the works. All right, guys, have a good night or day or whenever you're listening.
Thanks.
For the haters, come on, do it now or later. Whoa, yeah. It don't matter what your name is, share your story. We'll be waiting. Go.